I would like to talk to you today about singing, about how singing offers us the possibility to meet ourselves a little bit more deeply, how it gives us the opportunity to express ourselves in a way that we haven't got in any other form in our lives. I have always sung, and I believe that everybody can sing, even those who say that they can't, can. And I believe that when we start using our voice, powerful things can happen, powerful transformations. As a child, I used to wait for those hot, rainy nights, and I would have a special rain dress, and I would take off my shoes and socks, and I would slip out of the house into the street, and I would sing and I would dance until I came home soaking wet and completely happy. As I grew up, singing became the medium through which I earned my living. I'm an actress, and I've worked in Warsaw for the last 8 years, performing with 2 wonderful physical and vocal theatre companies. But singing was very much a tool, a method by which we told a story. And that's how I understood it, as a tool. And when I taught, I used it as a tool to teach students about different vocal placements, about different ways in which other cultures express their experiences of life. But 1.5 years ago, an event happened that changed the way I thought and taught singing. My father died very suddenly of a heart attack. I was in Wrocław at the time. I was about to premiere a show, and my older brother managed to reach me, and he suggested that I should see my father one last time before they took his body away. I come from a family of storytellers, lovers of words and literature and analysis and thought and argument. But somehow, in this moment, in this whole process, words and analysis and conversation had no comfort. It brought me nowhere. Even when kind and wonderful friends came to offer their words of condolences, somehow they couldn't penetrate into what it was that I was feeling. And words couldn't express even a modicum of the complexity of the emotions of that moment. So as I sat there in that room on Skype, I found myself casting around for some kind of support that would have meaning, some kind of ritual, something, anything to help me through this experience. And I found myself turning to a song that I had learned. At the time, my partner was on Skype in Warsaw, and a friend had come round. And so I turned to a Georgian song for 3 voices. It's a song that is used to help the soul travel out of the body once the body has died. And so on Skype, I began singing into a room in southeast London, while my brother and my mother sat on the floor, and my father was laid out on the bed. In that moment, I was allowed to express everything, the violence of all of those feelings that I felt, which when they had come out socially, I had seen horror flittering across the face of one of my friends as she desperately wanted to escape that uncomfortable moment. but song and singing can hold the vastness of our emotional experiences and expressions, the violence of them, the primalness, the animalness that exists within these extreme moments. And also it allowed for the contradiction of personality. And this is what became very powerful for me. Some months after, I took my mother walking. I took her walking in the Yorkshire Dales, so the very act of just putting one foot in front of the other could help start to soothe everything that was going on inside of her. On one particular day, I happened to push her too hard in my ambition to get to the top of a hill. And so to distract her on the way back down, I taught her a very simple Catalan song. And what happened in this moment was really interesting and surprising for me. My mother is a tall French woman with quite a low-speaking voice. But when she began to sing, she sang in a very high voice. And no matter what I did, I couldn't bring her high voice down back into her body in connection with who she was and who she is. And I tried hundreds of methods, and it just didn't work. And in that moment, I believed that if my mother wanted to begin to process this congested emotion that was inside of her, she should sing, and that singing would be the way to start to get things to flow. I returned to Wrocław, and I hadn't really shared with anybody what had been happening in my personal life. But people began turning up to sing. One man came because his father had also died that summer. Another woman came because her husband unexpectedly left her and her 3 children. Another because he lost his job. Another because she wanted to leave her long marriage, and she wanted to find the voice and the courage to do so. They had all come to sing. They had all come to sing either alone or in a community, in a group, to experience the joy of singing. But they had also come for something else, a way to find a space to process these life events, to find an expression for them. And so what began to happen is my teaching of singing began to change to meet these needs. Embedded in the songs, these polyphonic songs, was 2 primary things. The opportunity to practice personal process and the practicing of vulnerability. Personal process is, as the word suggests, personal. It's something an individual can do, and they can only choose to do it. And my role as the teacher is to hold that space for them. And when they start to catch into something, I hold them in that space. Even if it becomes slightly uncomfortable, even if they want to escape, I either reflect for them as a mirror, or I encourage them to go deeper, go into it more. An example of this happened about 3 weeks ago when I was performing in Yale. After the first opening night of the performance, there was a meet and greet with fantastic margaritas, and after one too many margaritas, in that kind of euphoric I love you stage of the evening, one production student happened to say that she would really love to take a singing lesson. And I said, yes, great, I'll teach you a singing lesson. So 2 days later, we met in a room, and I'm not sure that either one of us believed that the other one was going to turn up. And we had a random 1-hour session in our life, because probably we won't meet again. And so what to do in 1 hour? Well, we began working. We began with the body, which is how I always begin work. The body is inextricably linked to the voice. It is the vessel in which our voice exists. And it's also an indication of where somebody is living somehow within themselves. So as she began to move around the space, it became clear for me, as I was watching her body, that if she was standing still, if she was in one spot, she was connected. But as soon as she began moving, she began to lose connection with herself. And so I gave different exercises. This was reflected vocally as well. Exercises to help her stay inside herself as she was in a process of transition, in a process of journeying. This gave way to improvising. She would copy something, and until she began to take the vocal improvisation off by herself, still connected to physical actions. And I began to draw back and watch and listen and wait and watch for that moment till I could see that she would connect into something true for herself. And she did. And when she stayed in that, beautiful and amazing things began to happen. This technique of singing was natural. It wasn't needed. There were no lessons or tricks needed. Her voice automatically connected in and began to flow out of her. Her body began to change. Small, interesting gestures of her hands began to flicker out as she began singing. And of course, as the emotions suddenly welled up, as she began to feel and be shocked by what was coming out from inside of herself, she naturally disconnected. She was also, I'm sure, very self-conscious that a stranger was there watching this very private and intimate moment. But what was fantastic is she had the courage to bring herself back as well, continually into telling that story. And when we finished the session, she told me that she had been speaking to her grandmother, a woman she hadn't in actuality spoken to for many years, owing to a family estrangement. And she'd had no idea how important and how pertinent it was for her to have that communication with this woman, with one of her ancestors, the roots of where she came from. And she said that she would never forget that moment for as long as she lived. And that's one of these powers of this possibility of singing, to allow us to experience things that even maybe we're not conscious of. And it allows us to bring it up without verbalizing, without intellectualizing. So we can help ourselves get into this space through practicing vulnerability. Brené Brown says that often vulnerability is seen as a place of weakness, fear, and inadequacy. But look at it in a different way, and it becomes the birthplace of everything we are hungry for. And I believe this to be true. We practice vulnerability in singing through very simple technical exercises. An example of this is a physical exercise where a group will stand in a circle and an individual has to walk from one edge of the circle, crossing the center line to the other. There is no skill required. All you have to do is walk and to see and allow yourselves to be seen. And yet this causes incredible pain and difficulty and a myriad of different results, asphyxiation being one of them, because especially if the circle is very large, nobody breathes until they've walked right the way across to the other side. The other thing is they suddenly go blind. They can't see. They can't allow people to see them. They drop their eyes, or they have this kind of mist around them. Many people will bypass that center point of the circle, the most powerful point, because it feels so painful to be seen and exposed in that powerful point of the room. But turn that around, and they are in the most powerful and influential part of the space in which they can reach and expand and reach and meet other people. Some people never make it to the center or to the other side. They start the journey and then they turn around and they go back to where they came from. But it's an opportunity to practice being an individual within a society, within a group, to be part of and yet alone. This can be also seen in a very simple 5-note exercise. All it is simply stepping up 5 notes of the scale in relation to the rest of the group, in relation to a kind of home note. So first we have unity. And as soon as we move away from unity, we meet the second. This second often makes people feel uncomfortable. It's a dissonance, it's a difference of opinion. But settle into this difference of opinion and everything is okay. It's no longer a wrong note, it's just different. But move from the second into the third. And suddenly there's a resolution with that original home note. But somehow that chord is still looking backwards towards home. But if we move on, if we press on with our journey, We don't have a dissonance, but we don't have stability either. We're no longer looking back towards home. We're pressing onwards towards a different and a new future. The fifth. It isn't the same to hear music as it is to sing it yourself. When you sing yourself, a vibration occurs in your body that allows you to experience something differently. My experience of singing the fifth, of traveling through those 5 notes, is that when I arrive at that point, having journeyed through the dissonance, through the attachment still to home, through letting go of home on the 4th and traveling onwards, when I arrive at the 5th, I feel that suddenly I'm in a cathedral. I feel that my body is arches and peaks. I feel that I am standing upwards, somehow in myself. Both of these practices of vulnerability are about journeying. They are possibilities to experience a microcosm of some of the journeys that we make in life. And it's an opportunity to lean into the discomfort, to when we feel that moment of vulnerability as we stand at the center of the circle or sing that different note that is not the same as the home note, we can breathe and accept it. And in that moment of acceptance, we enter that place of possibility, the possibility to transform and feel and experience ourselves fully. Singing is our birthright. Everybody can do it. It's not about technique or singing in tune. Take it, grab it, use it. It makes us full human beings. It offers us the opportunity to feel ourselves fully. Dziękuję.
I'm not going to let you go just like that. You do know this, right? Magic, right? I mean, this is magic, right? Magic happens when you hear sound that just seems to penetrate. TED and TEDx, of course, are about ideas, right? It seems to me that one of the key ideas that we kind of arrive at in different ways is that we contain multitudes. Each one of us. We don't give ourselves enough credit for this. If we allow these other parts of us to, well, maybe not have free reign, but to have a healthy conversation with the rest of us, that seems to open up worlds that welcome us into places where we haven't been.
Yes, it does. It does.
Have you seen that in people en masse? I mean, how often does that happen? Is this like...
It happens every time somebody wants it. It happens if you want it, if you're willing to go there and hold yourself into that place where you feel for a moment uncomfortable, transformation, I believe it's guaranteed. It will always happen, I think.
Who can sing?
Everybody should be putting their hands up.
Who can't sing?
That is not possible.
You're all right. Right? We have time. We don't have a lot of time, but we have a little bit of time. I'm sure you have in your vast repository of tricks and amazing techniques and wonderful exercises, one little 30-second exercise that can actually get these guys to go inside and then come out singing.
Just like that.
Take it away.
So why don't we try this 5-note exercise? All it is stepping 5 notes. It's like literally walking up 5 steps. Easy. It's as easy as walking across the circle. So we just start together on 1 note. And if the guys mic the instrument loudly enough, you won't even hear yourself necessarily. So I'll start, and you just join in. Like, climb into my voice. Let me take you with my voice, and you just sit and come inside. Hold this. Keep it together. Hold this 1 note. travel and dance around you. And you just made music.
I think you deserve a round of applause. And so does the incredible Emma Bonnici.